The Forgotten Mermaid. All Lost Hearts May Be Redeemed by Gregga J. Johnn. 13. The siren rocked herself in the depths of her fortress. Her mind and body were racked by the memories that had sunk to the inky depths of her subconscious, but now floated up like bloated fish, poisoned and left festering in a rotten and putrid stench upon the shores. Stolen from her home and forced into the only slavery a female is ever seen fit for, the scorned girl remembered those dark days in the hull and the cages of the white whaling vessel. They had feasted upon her, and then in her revenge she had feasted upon them. But that was only the beginning of her horrors. She might have survived as a mermaid had she returned to the sweet, icy depths of her mer home to recover and find respect in herself again. But instead she believed the lies of another sweet young boy who made vows to be her servant. He'd found her in her bitterness, and with a smile full of malarkey he promised to take her home to his family and make her his own, and she believed him, as all young lovers do. So he took her, and they travelled above the uplands, far away from her ocean fare. He kept her safely in a concealed bath in the back of their wagon. Sometimes there was only enough water in the bottom of the basin to keep her barely alive. Yet he held promises of grand baths on the home estate, and so for him she maintained her legs by day, and by night she slept in what little slush of water the rain granted. When they finally arrived at his home, she found that his extensive estate walls contained a grand zoo and a magnificent museum full of creatures strange and new. Her new father-in-law was both owner and ringmaster of a glorious carnival circus. This was the exciting life that her husband had talked of as they travelled. The parties, the fame, the money, all of it enjoyed by the young couple. He as her keeper, she as his creature on display. He'd even managed to convince her to keep her dignity uncovered. Although he roped her in magnificent strands of glittering jewels, she was not granted shells to hide her feminine form, for gentlemen came from all over and paid great treasures to see her beauty behind the glass. For the truly wealthy and royalty, she was even given as an offering for the investigation of her full womanly form behind private chamber doors. The mermaid's husband lost all interest in his creature. He hid his disgust deep in his heart, but when she fell greatly ill from all the exposure, he cared not to keep her any longer, and allowed a bargain to be struck with the prestigious Science Academy, who desired to understand more of how such a creature might exist. They had plans for a great many experiments. The fishwoman had plans of her own. Now quite accustomed to the passions and weaknesses of men, and well experienced in the means of causing men to succumb to such, the scorned and derided mermaid set her heart to a siren's bitterness. She planned a farewell party with her husband, who was full agreement and delighted with her ideas. This husband of hers was a weak man, guided by any who pressed their opinion over his. As such, he was a master of innocent evil, and always presented himself as the victim that needed another to lead him. Many were deceived and believed all manner of lies that he whispered in their ears. For all who offer help and guidance find pride in assisting those found in less circumstances, so this husband always had some great need that could only be attended to by whomever he was speaking with. Thus all effort in living was eased by arranging for someone else to do all his work for him. In this habit, her husband was blandly unaware of all that was involved in the party plans that resulted in his drunken stupor being slept off in the coffin-like water bath that was intended to carry her to the Science Academy. She was sure his rude awakening in the afterlife might shock his easy-going nature, but she doubted he would ever understand what had happened, or why. For a handful of years, the siren wandered the streets as a woefully forgotten woman. She didn't mind grovelling in the mud for food by day, for when she was truly hungry, she simply seduced a young man, or a young woman even, and had them lead her to their bathing waters, and there feasted upon their flesh, while she washed and revived her hidden magic. Very soon she had a vast array of wealth, and a loyal entourage who treated her like an immortal goddess. She took a new name to herself, and her fame began to spread as rumours in a rainstorm. It is said that other immortal creatures of the night began to seek out her magic and insight at magnificent feasts and decadent carnivals, and the glorious Matilda was named queen over the festivities of the night. Matilda forgot all her past happiness and revelled in the guts of her past darkness. She sucked out the blood of all who opposed her, and even some innocents who simply got in the way. But it was not long until the bitterness burned within her belly so deeply that her mind got lost. In trying to remedy the pain, she retreated into her agonies. At that time her travelling showcase of bloodlust found its summer ending by the cliffs of Citigo, Portugal. Here, in the ancient traditions of holy worship, Matilda wandered alone on the cliff-tops in search of solace. Solitude is hard come by when you seek it earnestly. Thus it was that a wizened monk interrupted her contemplations. As she stood in the wind overlooking the crashing waves of the ocean. "What is it you seek, my lady?" the pale and ghost-like figure asked her. "I know not any more," she whispered. "Then you are lost?" he inquired. "Most certainly I am lost. I am lost to everything." She was still, so still she was not even sure her lips moved, but the storm raged about her. "Then you must go home, my lady," the monk responded. Matilda gazed down at the waters and whispered, "Home." "Home, yes," said the monk. "Home you go, then." He stepped out over the cliff face and remained before her, ethereal and inviting. She reached out to him as a lamb trusting her shepherd, and stepping out to follow him, she plummeted down the cliff and into the surf below. A mer-guard awaited her in the tossing waves. They arrested her, and took her as ransom home to the kingdom of her birth. Matilda spoke not a bubble to any of her own kind, for her heart was too blackened to be part of her people any more. This made her trial quick and easy. She was found guilty of blood crimes against the less uplanders, and sentenced to banishment above the waves on a lonely island. There, if she found any redemption in her future years of solitude, she might return home again some day. But only if she could remedy her blackened heart. But all Matilda had found on her lonely island was more feast, more flesh to feast upon.